Welcome back to another episode of Sports Den Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hooker here, and today's episode is my Pretenders or Contenders or Real or Fake edition for college football. Let's get into it. Number one, let's get into it. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of the better teams when their star players playing, and that is John Mateer. So whenever John Mateer gets back from injury, they are real. But right now, I think they're fake because John Mateer's presence is such an uplifting feeling across the team because you see it on the defense, you see it on the offensive end. Guys play a little harder. Guys want to win with their star player. And John Mateer is arguably the best quarterback in college football, and it's shown week in and week out of how he's impacted this offense and how he wins games for this team. Now, they have a big test coming up against Texas this week. Now, I do believe that they'll make things hard for Arch Manning. They'll see some film that they saw against Florida that Texas has. But I do believe that Oklahoma, when John Mateer gets back, you guys have a good chance of making the playoff. But in due time, though, because you don't want him to rush back from an injury like he did with his hand. But if he says he's ready to play, go ahead. Because this season right here is going to mean a lot to Oklahoma and their team. I do believe that if he's available, play him because he's the best player in college football. So let's see what happens. My next team, Texas A&M. I do believe Texas A&M is one of the better teams in college football, offensively and defensively. They play complementary football. They have a run game. They have their star quarterback in Marcel Reed. And right now, their last couple weeks, they have a schedule that's going to be a little hard on them, but we'll see what happens because this upcoming week they face Florida, who's riding a high, beating Texas, and now with the momentum they have, with DJ Lagway playing up to par in that game against Texas, then you have the Dallas Wilson to worry about. You have the Sturdivants to worry about. So when I see that, I say to myself, okay, how can Texas A&M slow them down? And they can slow them down by using their run game because their run game with Le'Veon Moss is one of the best in the nation. And also having a quarterback that can run like Marcel Reed, I do believe that Texas A&M is one of the better teams in college football, and I do believe that they're a contender and that they are real and they have a chance to make the college football playoff and make a run at the national championship. The next team, Alabama. Alabama is arguably right now one amongst the elite in college football right now, based off Todd Simpson, because he's been arguably the hottest quarterback in the nation so far. And you have guys like Ryan Williams, you got guys like Isaiah Horn, Jeremy Bernard, who's been playing like a wide receiver one. And you also found your running game back against Vanderbilt with Jam Miller running for over 100 yards. And I do believe that with a team like this, your offense is one of the best in the nation. Now, your defense is coming along, and they had a stout performance against Diego Pavia. And if they can consistently play like that, I do believe that they have a good chance because they have a big test this week, a huge one in Columbia, Missouri, against the Tigers with Ahmad Hardy, who's already rushed for over 700 yards in the first 5 games. So when I see that, I say to myself, can Alabama run defense slow down Hardy? Because we saw Chauncey Bowens of Georgia run for over 100 yards, and he looked good doing it. He was efficient with his carries. Now, if Missouri can find a way to do that, I do believe that Missouri can win the football game. But right now, I'm taking Alabama to escape Missouri with that win. Now, the next team up, Georgia. Georgia is facing a test that is very hard for them in past years being on the road in that position. But now with this team, we're going to see how good this defense is because Alabama, they played very decent. Tennessee, they gave up explosive plays. But in this Auburn game at Jordan Hare, Cam Newton's jersey is being retired. So they have that emotion going in. They have that energy coming in. And plus, you're a top 10 team coming into town. So you know the crowd is going to be rocking. Now, they also have guys like Eric Singleton Jr. They have another stout wide receiver who's arguably one of the best in the nation, Cam Coleman. And so when you have guys like that, you have to say to yourself, okay, how can Georgia stop them? That's by getting the pass rush going. Because in one game, Auburn gave up 10 sacks to Oklahoma. I'm not saying Georgia has the guys and the personnel that Oklahoma has to create that amount of sacks, but pressuring Jackson Arnold to a couple bad decisions that I do believe that Georgia has. So let's see what Georgia does. And I do believe Georgia is a real team because they have what it takes to make a run at the national championship, which is good quarterback play, a run game, and wide receivers that can go and make plays. And a defense that can play complementary football, limit explosive plays. Because in the Alabama game, they only gave up 3 explosive plays out of 80-something plays. So when I see that, I say to myself, okay, how can this Georgia team win? You got to beat Auburn. You have to win against Ole Miss. You got to beat Florida. Mississippi State's going to be a hard one, but you got to beat them. Texas, you got to beat them. And then you have Charlotte and Georgia Tech at the end of the year. So basically winning out the season, or basically winning out the season, to be real, is an opportunity that Georgia has to seize. Because going to the playoff, you want that higher seeding. You want to have an advantage going into the playoffs. Maybe not. Maybe if you don't win it, the SEC championship, you have the momentum to carry on. So next team up, Ole Miss. I do believe Ole Miss is a contender, rightfully so. They found a way to beat LSU. They have a run game. They have a quarterback in Trinidad Chambers coming from Ferris State, now playing a great game of football with this Rebels team. And I do believe that Lane Kiffin has found his quarterback again. Even though Austin Simmons is a good quarterback, I think he's found a new wrinkle in the offense with Trinidad Chambers. And I do believe that Ole Miss is a real team, and I do believe that they can be in the college football playoff. LSU, I got to say their fate. Because they haven't found a run game. This offense has been too inconsistent. And then we look at their schedule, they face Texas A&M. They go on the road to Alabama. So I do believe that they're in trouble, because then you have Ole Miss at the end. You have Oklahoma at the end of the season, and then you face Vanderbilt after you face South Carolina. So there are going to be tough games, and I do believe that LSU will drop one more, and I do believe that LSU will be out of the college football playoff. Missouri is a team that you're going to figure out who they are this weekend. Because Alabama is a team where a lot of eyes will be on this game to see how can Eli Drinkwitz go up against Kellen DeBoer in this Alabama team, because you have Ahmad Hardy. So when you hear Ahmad Hardy, you hear zone runs, you hear ground and pound game with their team, because Missouri relies on their run game to get their pass game going, and I do believe Missouri can get the job done, but will they? I do not believe so. I do believe Alabama has already been a tough road environment in Athens, Georgia, and I do believe that Alabama will sneak out with the win, even though Missouri is one of the better home teams in college football. So let's see what this game will be capable of, but I do believe Alabama will sneak out here. But for the rest of the season, you got to go to Auburn. Then you have to go to Vanderbilt. Those are 2 pivotal games, because if you can create momentum going to Texas A&M versus Texas A&M at home, I do believe you guys can win that. I do believe that you guys can win against Texas A&M, but you have to find that momentum and sustain it throughout those games to go up against Texas A&M. And Oklahoma at the end of the year, I do believe Missouri can get in, but right now, I'm on the fence. We're on the fence about them. See me after this week. Tennessee's real. Joey Aguilar is a great team, but will they get it done? No. So Tennessee is real. I do believe they'll lose 2 more games. I do believe it will be Alabama, Oklahoma, and Tennessee will be out of the playoffs. Great team. Arguably the best quarterback in hypo era since Hendon Hooker with Joey Aguilar, but I do not believe they'll make the playoffs, so I have to say that they're fake. Texas, fake. Texas is fake. They have too much talent on the field, too much money being spent on roster construction not to look and execute at a high level that they are supposed to be at. Because we've seen Steve Sarkisian saying, look at the schedule that we have. Go put the other 135 teams on our schedule. Let's see what they do. You cannot complain about being at the University of Texas and seeing the schedule that you have and you're not coming up with wins. Because you have donors giving up a lot of money to help out in the NIL. You have all these things riding in your favor. And the complaints that are happening should not be there. So with that being said, Texas is fake, and I do not believe they'll make the college football playoff. Miami is the ACC lock in my eyes in the ACC, and I do believe they'll win the ACC championship. So Miami is real. Carson Beck is playing a Heisman level so far this season. Malachi Tony is one of the best freshman wide receivers in the nation. CJ Daniels has done a great job being the ex-wide receiver in this offense and making things go. And he has developed a great connection with Carson Beck, and we've seen it week in and week out. And the defense has done a transformation. Everybody runs the ball. Ruben Bain looking like a top 10 draft pick, and I do believe that Miami is real, and Miami is a contender. Georgia Tech has a big test coming up this week against Duke and Darnell Minshew. I do believe that Georgia Tech can get in the playoff, but I do not think that they are real in the sense of having a chance to compete for a title, because they have to have a pass game. You got to have some type of pass game. And I do believe in some games when you face a team like, let's say, Oklahoma, they're going to shut down that run game. So let's see what you can do passing the football. Or a team like Texas A&M, they're going to shut down that run game. Let's see what you're going to do passing the football. And I do not believe Haynes King is the guy to do that. But if Georgia Tech can somehow win out, I do believe with only one loss, and that's maybe to the ACC championship, but also you have Georgia on the schedule. That's 2 losses. And if you look at a team with Georgia Tech with 2 losses, or you can look at a team like, let's say, for example, Oklahoma with 2 losses, or Oklahoma with 1 loss, and they're both up for the last spot in the college football playoffs, you're going to give it to the other team. You're going to give it to Oklahoma. Or you can say Ole Miss with 2 losses. Who are you going to choose? You're going to choose Ole Miss with those 2 losses, because you do believe Ole Miss can create more revenue and create more opportunities for an upset. Now, don't get me wrong. Georgia Tech is a great team that you can send off in the playoff to get an upset, but I do not believe they'll get the job done. So, Georgia Tech right now, I'm on the fence. We'll have to see how they look throughout the season, if they can win out the rest of the games before Georgia, because if they can create a lot of problems for this Bulldog defense. Haynes King being one of them. So let's see what happens this week against Duke, because that's one team that they're going to have to buckle up their chin straps for, and let's see what happens. Florida State, I'm sorry, but pretenders. This is your foundation year with Mike Norvell finding yourself again after the post-Jordan Travis era, post-Keon Coleman, post-Jared Verse, Braden Fitz era. So let's see what happens. You've done good enough this season. Now, if you can win 8 to 9 games, I do believe that's a successful season for Florida State, but I know their fans want more. So if you guys can somehow win out the rest of the season, I do believe that you guys can be one of the better teams in college football. But for right now, you guys are fake and you guys are pretenders in my eyes. Let's go now. The next conference, the Big Ten. Let's start off easy. Indiana and Penn State are in the same boat. Great teams, both have great quarterbacks. I do believe Fernando Mendoza is a better quarterback than Drew Allar right now, but I do believe with their schedules, I do believe that Indiana might make it because they can go to Eugene, take a loss. But if you guys can go into Happy Valley against Penn State, I do believe that you guys will be in the playoffs. But right now, I do believe for national championship contention, no. You guys are pretenders. You guys are fake because you guys will not have enough to get the job done. So let's move forward because both teams will not be a national championship contender. I do believe that Penn State has been one of the bigger disappointments this season with all the return of production, grabbing Pena from Syracuse, and not even looking apart as a Big Ten championship contender. So I do believe Penn State is a bigger disappointment, but I do believe Indiana will not make it. Now moving forward, USC and Oregon. Oregon, contender all day, every day. USC, I'm on the fence. But this weekend against Michigan, if you guys can win that game, I do believe you guys can win. You guys have an opportunity to win the Big Ten championship. But what I saw out of you guys' performance against Illinois, I do believe that when times get tough, I do believe you guys crumble. And you have an opportunity to change my mind against a very good Michigan defense. And I do believe with this schedule, you have 4 opportunities to show me. You have Michigan, you have Notre Dame, you have Nebraska, and you have Oregon. So if you guys can somehow find a way to make things happen, I'll give you guys another look. But right now, pretender. Now for Michigan, Ohio State, I do believe that Michigan, let's go ahead and get out of the way, pretender. I do believe you guys don't have enough to win an national championship this year. I do believe that a freshman quarterback won't be able to win your national championship this year because your offense is not as talented. Justice Haynes is a great running back, but I do not believe you guys can get it done. You have a big test with USC this week, but if you guys can win that game and also make the game against Ohio State competitor, I do believe you guys have a chance to make the playoffs. But in the playoffs, I do not believe you guys can win it. But on the other side for Ohio State's been one of the better teams, arguably the best team in college football. Their defense has not given up over 200 total yards in a game this season. Their defense is so good that the offensive playbook has not even opened up. So now when I look at that and I see that, I say to myself, if Julian Sayin can be more confident throwing the deep ball, and he's gradually has been showing that confidence throwing to the Cornell Tate, throwing to Jeremiah Smith, because if that can continue happening come playoff time, this team will be the most complete team in college football. Now I do believe they can be beat, but right now there's no signs of it on their schedule. Who can beat them other than Michigan? But I do believe Michigan will have a hard time, and I do believe that Ohio State will leave the regular season undefeated. Now, for the last 2 teams, Notre Dame and Texas Tech. Notre Dame has one more big game in my eyes versus USC come next week. And the rest of the games, they can win out. But right now, Notre Dame will be on the outside looking in on what they can do to get into the playoffs. And they need some help being done from other teams to lose and push them up in the rankings to win and get in for the college football playoff. Now, a national championship, I cannot say that they'll win one because it's been too inconsistent on the offense and defensive end to where one game the defense looks great and the offense doesn't look as good. But now we have the offense looking good, but defense not being there. So I do believe that Notre Dame is a pretender and they're a fake. Now for next team, Texas Tech. Texas Tech has a hard schedule to end the season with going to Arizona State in 2 weeks, Kansas State at the end of the year. And then after going to Kansas State, you got to face BYU. And I do believe that their defense is one of the best defenses in the nation. But if they cannot win on the road against Arizona State, they lose one more to BYU, I do believe that the Big 12 arguably won't have a representative in the college football playoff once again. But I do believe that Texas Tech is the best team in the Big 12 right now due to their defense and due to Brandon Morton. But I do believe that they're beatable, and I believe that they'll take a loss. I don't know when, but they'll take a loss, but they'll come back and win the Big 12 championship, and we'll see how the committee does from there. But I do believe that Texas Tech, in my eyes, to win national championship, they're pretenders, they're fake. But they'll get into the college football playoff, and that will be it for their season. Once again, they might win the first round, but they're definitely losing the second round. Well, that's the end of this episode. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.